right, so I'm excited again today to be here at the virtual Sigma Virtual Hour with our chapter, the Beta Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Again, what we do is we provide information that's vital to not just to the blue and white family, but to the community as a whole. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Jeff Granger. We'll be talking about educational investments. Why is it important to invest in your child's future now? What can you do to begin to take that burden off of you, far as the take that burden off of you, far as college tuition? Um, I want to thank you all for joining us. Again, ask questions, like, share, and we're going to get started. So, Mr. Granger, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, I appreciate you asking me to be here. First of all, my name is Jeff Granger, co-founder along with my wife Ebony Granger of Granger Financial. Um, we own this insurance and financial practice together. I have over 11 years in the insurance and financial industry. Originally from Newark, New Jersey, I went to Hampton University, played basketball there before going overseas, playing basketball professionally for a couple of years, and then coming back, getting into the world of banking before moving into the financial industry and the insurance industry with a Fortune 50 insurance company. Was there for about 10 years, then leaving to open Granger Financial, and here I am today, Barry.
Okay, so how long has Granger Financial been around? And could you tell us some things that you all specialize in?
Awesome. So Granger Financial has been around this is our second year. And that's a loaded question, right? Because after being in the financial industry with a major company, I was terminated from that position, my executive role. They didn't see fit to have me anymore on July 12th of 2019. That was a Friday. I remember because my wife and I had just come back from an overseas travel trip with our family on the 10th, and I was terminated on the 12th. And on July 15th, which was a Monday, Granger Financial was opened. And on July 16th, we placed our first policy with our first client. So God made no mistakes, and time waits for no man. So we got back up and running, and we were on our way.
And what is the mission and goal overall of Granger Financial?
Oh man, Granger Financial's mission and goal is to be the number one priority choice when it comes to insurance and financial planning as it relates to our community. Our goal is to let our family help protect yours. Most people don't understand the various nuances that go into planning and also protection. We've made it so much in this industry that it's all about the price that you pay for it, but we'll go out and spend money on Louis Vuitton and Gucci, where a Kmart or Walmart bag will carry the same amount of items in there, your ID, your wallet, and your phone, right? So from the insurance industry, we want to make sure that we help you prioritize those things. We help you get to where you want to be ultimately financially, but we make it simple and not overwhelming to the vast majority of people that we meet with.
Got it. And so at the end of this show, we'll have you provide your contact information and what's the best way to reach you, and what you do far as coming into our homes, or us coming to you and developing our financial portfolio. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Well, let's dive right on into the questions. So today we're talking about educational investments. What can we do to invest in our children's future? And how can we invest now to take the burden off of us later? So the first thing we see when we begin Googling, begin looking things up, we see the 529 plan. What is that?
That's a great question. So I put some slides together and just so we could kind of understand what those things are. So 529 is basically a savings plan that allows you to put in money after taxes. So that means you get your paycheck, and after you get your paycheck, the government takes taxes out. They allow you to put that money that you already paid taxes on into an investment vehicle, which is called the 529 plan, which is section 529 of the tax code. And then it allows you to grow that money tax deferred, meaning you pay no money on it while it's growing, while it's invested. And then if you take it out for qualified educational expenses or qualified expenses, then you can take that money out totally income tax free.
Now, what are those qualified expenses?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually put it in here for you. So some of those qualified expenses are tuition, books, supplies or equipment, room and board. In certain instances, room and board's a tricky one, but in certain instances, room and board. And this is one that I don't think a lot of people know about, but up to $10,000 can be used for any early education. That's K through 12 education. If you wanted to pull money out of your 529 plan to put your child in a better school, private school, something like that, you could use some 529 benefits up to $10,000 in order to do that.
Is that $10,000 a year or $10,000 over the lifetime of this investment?
So that's $10,000 over the lifetime of the deal.
Okay. And how would they take the money out? Will the institution that the child goes to, would they request the funds? How does that actually work?
So are you talking about for early childhood, or are you talking about in general from college?
Both.
Both. So if it's early childhood, it's all directed by you. These are your funds, right? Like, this is your money. You have a file and report system with our IRS, with our government, right? Like you have to report yourself. It's a self-reporting system. So
okay.
with the 529 plan, it's your money. So if you take it out and pay for it for college, you'll get statements from the school, or you'll get a 1099 statement that says it was paid, or a receipt that says you used X amount of dollars for X amount of expense. Okay. And you file at the end of the year, you file that with it to make sure that you don't have any offsetting penalties or any income that you have to claim because you didn't use it for a qualified expense.
Got it. So what you would do is they'll send you this form, and when you file your taxes, you'll say, I use this for the appropriate method that this was designed for. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And so now let me ask you a question. Are there certain types of 529s? Like, is there a, and then when you do the 529, is there a certain investment? Like, do you pick, hey, I want to do technology in my 529. I want to do real estate in my 529. How does that work?
That's a great question. So depending upon the state in which you live in, each state has specific 529 plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have certain investments that you can invest in within that 529 plan in the state of Virginia. And Virginia's 529 plan is going to look different than Maryland's, then it's going to look different than North Carolina's. So you would have to, and I know there's people from other states and not only Virginia here. So you'd have to kind of look at what your state's plan offers, and then what the investment vehicles you're going to put inside that plan to get you to your ultimate goal. So I would tell you to talk to your financial professional or someone that you work with that administers these plans, or reach out to us, and we'd love to help you, position one of those for you, and we can put you with someone who can definitely take care of you as well.
Well, let me ask, and that's you brought up a good point. Say I do a 529 in Virginia, but my child wants to go to North Carolina A&T. Is it transferable to a school outside of the state of Virginia? How does that actually work?
So in some cases, yes, it is transferable to a school outside of the state of Virginia. It just depends on each situation, and not to dig too far into the weeds, because these plans can get a little bit confusing at times. But I want to make sure that we kind of stay on the grassroots high level of it, to make sure people fully understand, what the savings portion of it is. So for us at Granger Financial, what we like to do is help people understand the behaviors of what they do behind the investment or the savings for college. Because not to disregard your question, but most of us, if you think about us in our community, we can answer that question for you right now. But the reality is, none of us have gotten started saving for college.
Correct.
So I think focusing more on what it takes to get started and what it does will help us identify what we can do with it later. Because we can always figure out later, but we can't figure out later if we never get started now.
So I guess my question to you then is, when should I start? And is it ever too late?
So So no, it's never too late, because anything that can be used tax-free is basically like, hey, I get almost a free pass on the interest that I earn over time. And I've actually put in a slide for you guys if someone starts at year 5 or if they start at year 18. So if you look at it, let's say let's start at the 18 years deal first. Let's say you start at the day your child was born or 2 weeks after your child was born, and you say, I'm going to put $100 a month into a 529 plan. And let's just say it grows at 8%. Yes, 8% is an arbitrary number. It could be higher, it could be lower. I just chose that rate for illustration purposes to make sure everybody could at least identify what I'm talking about. Okay. So let's say $100 a month for 18 years. That means you would have invested $21,600. But after 8 years, the 18-year period, you would have $96,017.23. And if I did the quick math on that, let's just do it. It looks like you would have about $74,000 in net gain to be able to help you pay for college.
Okay.
And if you think about that, right, that gain to help you pay for college is tax-free. You take it out. So all of that interest that you earned is now tax-free that can be used for college.
Got it.
Just think about, if you just saved $21,000 today is not going to spend the same way $21,000 would spend 18 years from now, correct?
Correct.
Because you have inflation. So this helps you keep pace with inflation. It helps you stay the course, and then you can use it tax-free.
Got it.
So to answer your is it too late question, well, let's say you only got 5 years. Let's say you just got in a position when your child turned 13. Well, let's say you put a little bit more money into it. $200 a month is $6,000 after 5 years that you've invested, and that grows to $14,000. I know my daughter goes to Hampton. One semester's almost a little bit more than that, but hey, I'd rather pay $6,000 than the whole $19,000 that it costs for one semester, right?
Right.
So that's a way to look at it. So I would tell people it's never too late to get started to pay for college. You start at any point in time that you can, and you get that thing moving.
So what are the pros and cons of a 529 plan?
So great question. Another great question, man. The pros and cons, the pros we've talked about, right? You can put that money in after tax. It grows tax deferred. And if it's used for qualified expenses, you do not have to pay any taxes on it on the way out. And now what I'll say some of the cons are is that it does have to be used for qualified college expenses. So what does that mean? What if my child doesn't go to college? Well, that's a great question. That's why we have it here. If your child doesn't end up going to college, you have to realize that you can still transfer it to another child. I have 4 children. Let's say we started one and my oldest didn't go to college. I could transfer it to another child, and I could do that once a year, every year. Okay. Or I could transfer it to a qualified family member. Let's say my wife wanted to go back and get her doctorate. So if she wants to do that, we could probably use the 529 in order to do that. She's a qualified family member. So it has some flexibility, but some of us don't go to college. Some of us say, you know what, that might not be the route for me. And if that's the case, that is okay. You do have some flexibility. Now, if you only have one child, then there is a 10% penalty on the interest gain, and then you'd have to pay income taxes on that as well. So
on the interest gain, correct?
On the interest gain, never on your principal. You would never pay any money, any taxes on your principal that you've already invested, because you pay taxes on that once when it got taken out of your paycheck.
Got it. And so let me ask you a question. I got $1,400 in my stimulus. I want to put this in a savings bond for my child. Should I do the savings bond or should I do the 529, and why?
So that really depends on your financial situation, right? Because I could ask so many more questions to that. Yes, you got your stimulus, you want to put it in a savings bond, but a savings bond takes how many years to mature? 30 years to mature? So that means your child really wouldn't be able to touch the full amount of interest until they turn 30. And then that that whole amount of interest has to be claimed on their income tax return, because that's taxable income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not discouraging you from doing bonds, but I'm going to ask more questions and say, what is your goal? Can you contribute more monthly? Do you have times in your year where you work a job that you earn commissions that you can pay more in or pay less in, or you have some flexibility with income? Are you paying off your car within the year? A lot of questions that I would ask as a financial professional to make sure that I'm giving you the right advice and just not saying it's cookie cutter, because each person's situation is different.
Got it. And so my question is, say, for example, my child graduates from high school, wants to go to college, but takes a year off. When do I have to remove these funds from this account, or when do I have to use these funds?
So there's no use it or lose it standpoint, right? But it has to be used for qualified expenses. So they'll let you keep it in, but guess what? The IRS is going to say, whenever you take it out, if it's not qualified, I want my money. I want my cut. The government is use it or lose it. So if he takes a year, she takes a year, that's fine. When they go back to school, as long as it's for qualified expenses, you can use those funds.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do the parent have to take the 529, or can a grandparent, or aunt, or uncle take it out for a niece or a nephew?
So they can set it up for a niece or nephew if it's in that child's name, as long as they use that benefit and it's for that child, they can do it.
Okay. And so is this plan divisible by will? So can you leave?
Go ahead. You were saying, can I do what now?
Can you leave this to someone, or if this child passes away, can you transfer it to maybe the grandchild? What happens when the child passes and we just have these funds together, or the person who funds it passes away? How do we handle that?
So the person that funds it, so I'm not an estate attorney, right? I'm not a state attorney, so I'm not providing any legal advice or estate advice as it relates to that. But what I will give is a best case scenario. If the person funding it passes away, the child is still the beneficiary of those funds, okay? As long as they're used for qualified expenses. If not, I believe, and again, I'm not gonna. So let me be fair and say this. I'm not gonna to answer that from a standpoint of I know how it'll be handled from a purely estate perspective, because that's a peculiar situation if an aunt or uncle that's funding something passes on, okay?
Right.
Because it could now be a part of their estate. I'm just not fully aware of that answer, but I do know if a mother or father passes away, the child is still the beneficiary and still will have access to those funds as long as they use it for a qualified expense.
So what is the 403B?
Oh,
And can that be used for educational funds as well?
that's a great question. I'll transition to the next slide. So the 403B kind of all runs in the same category as the IRA, the 403B, and 401k. If you have a 403B, you're either a state employee, you work in the school system, police officer, firefighter, something like that. Okay. 401k is very similar. And an individual retirement account is very similar to that as well. So all of these accounts are pre-taxed accounts, meaning that contributions are tax deductible, your earnings grow tax deferred, and any distributions that you take before 59 and a half are subject to penalty unless they are like for college or hardship or something like that if you take a loan from one of those accounts, okay? The maximum contribution for your IRA is 6,000 or 7,000 if you're over 50. Now, in your 401k, it's not, I want to say it's 19,500 if it had, and I don't think it's going up this year. So 19,500 in your 401k or 403b is the max contribution limits for the year 2021.
Okay. And so can you explain what's the difference between a Roth IRA and a regular IRA?
Absolutely. I have the screen up for you guys so you can see it. And if you see me looking to the right, I have a second monitor up so I can see exactly the same thing you guys are seeing. So same thing, Roth IRA is very similar, but it has a little bit different tax code. It's taxed differently. Let me say that. So the contributions are tax deductible. The earnings grow tax deferred. Distributions, once you reach 59 and a half, are totally tax free.
Okay.
You can use funds to pay for college, and the max contribution limits are 6,000 or 7,000 if over 50. Now, with a Roth IRA, you pay taxes on your paycheck money first, quite like the 529, right?
Okay.
We talked about that in the beginning, where you get the money after taxes, you put it in, it grows tax deferred, and as long as you hold it for 5 years before the age of 59 and a half, you can take those monies out totally income tax free. Very same thing. And there's no, guess what? There's no qualification on these funds when you take them out after 59 and a half.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And I love Roth IRA, and some, not to dig into the weeds, but some 401k plans or 403b plans have a Roth IRA component.
Okay.
So my advice to people has always been only put in what your company matches you. So if your company only matches you 6%, only get that 6%, put that 6% in pre-tax, and then everything else you can afford, you put into your Roth IRA. Why do I say that? I'll show you here in this quick illustration. If you were a farmer, let me ask you this question. Would you rather pay taxes on the seeds or the crop?
Probably the seeds.
You'd rather pay taxes on the seeds? That's, most people say that when I show them this illustration. So when you're a farmer, you plant a seed, you plant one seed, one mustard seed can grow a really big plant, correct?
Correct.
So if that big plant can make me more money, would I rather pay taxes on the small seed or the big crop? Because the government's going to tax me more on that big crop than they are on that one little seed, correct?
Right.
So the theory is the Roth IRA is your crop. When you take that money out, there's no taxes on it. So you've made out scot-free, versus when you have your IRA, you're putting that money in, and when you take it back out, you're taking it back out and you're getting taxed. I'll give you a numbers example for it.
Okay.
Let's just say the max tax rate is 30%. And you saved $1 million into your traditional IRA. But when you go to take that money out, if you want to take all your money out when you turn 70, I'm making that number, that age up, you're going to have to pay 30% taxes on that $1 million. So you've saved 1 million, but the government's going to come back and get their 30%. So you've only really gotten 700,000. That's the seeds. Now, if I do that in a Roth IRA, I pay my taxes before, right now, today, and then I put that money in and it grows tax deferred. Now I get to eat all my crop, reap every dollar. That whole $1 million is my money.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It makes very good sense. And so let me ask you a question. If you have a child, let's talk about index funds. What are index funds? I saw that question come up in the chat, and I wanted to find out more about it. What are index funds?
That's a great question. Index funds they're basically a passively managed fund that allows you to put your money into an investment vehicle, and that vehicle is going to duplicate what the stock market is doing. For example, let's say I put the money into S&P 500 index. So whatever those 500 companies that are in the S&P, the Standard & Poor's 500 does, let's say I'm making this up, McDonald's one of them, Dunkin' Donuts is another, and Tesla is one. So if all of those companies are in the S&P 500, not 100% holds true. They're not going to all be doing bad at the same time.
Right.
So if Tesla's up 30%, McDonald's down 10%, and Dunkin' Donuts is down 8%, you still probably have a net positive of about 12% somewhere.
Okay.
Okay. Now, that's the thing that allows you to balance your money for it to grow consistently over time versus just putting everything in Tesla. And if you watch anybody that's watched Tesla stock, that thing has been going up and down, up and down, up and down. And it would give somebody a heart attack if all of their money was tied to that.
Correct. So is it beneficial to have a diverse portfolio when investing, and why?
Absolutely beneficial to have a diverse portfolio, because you never want to be too heavy in one industry, because those industries are like bubbles. Like if I put all of my money into technology right now, I probably have a heart attack because technology stocks have been tanking here in the last couple of weeks. Or if I put all my money in electric vehicles, right? You just don't know what's going to come of it. Tesla is leading the industry. So you want to have a little bit of each one of those industries, which allows you to reap the benefits when each one of them does well, or if they don't do as well. I think we had a question out there. Daryl Kemp, I'm going to answer your question real quickly because it kind of relates to what we've been talking about. It says, at 54, is it too late to start an IRA? I would say no. And the reason that I say no is because most people are working longer. The average, they've moved up the age where you have to take your required minimum distribution. It's no longer 70 and a half. It's moved up. So what that tells me is that even if you work for 16 more years and you save $7,000 a year, let's do quick math on that. That's 10 times 7 is 70, and 7 times 5 is 35. So you'd have another almost $13,500, $135,000 saved up if you just saved $7,000 a year for the next 15 years. So it's not too late to start an IRA. And I hope that answers your question. I would say start it today, start it now. And if you can afford to do a Roth IRA, that's what I would advise you to do, especially if you know how much longer you're going to continue to work.
Well, I like that question. So let me ask you a question. So if my portfolio will vary based on pretty much my age and the amount of money that I have. So the portfolio that you would develop for someone that's 28 is drastically different from the portfolio of someone that's 58, correct?
Absolutely.
And so my question to you is, what things should a 28-year-old invest in far as stocks, bonds, and their IRAs, and what should a 58-year-old invest in as far as stocks, bonds, and IRAs, because they're getting ready to retire, whereas the 28-year-old is pretty much starting their career?
So Barry, again, that's a tough question to answer, partly because everyone's situation is different, right? A 28-year-old has more risk, but it also is determined on their risk tolerance. Like how risky they feel like they're willing to be. Do they feel like they can see their account value go $10,000 down and they're not gonna, have a heart attack, right? Do they feel like they can see a $20,000 loss and they'll be like, all right, it'll come back, I got time. Some people can accept that risk. Some people just can't deal with it. So you have to sit with the person to understand them and really determine what is the best course of action for that specific person. And for me, with a person nearing retirement, I called the 5 years before retirement and the 5 years after retirement. I got this from one of my mentors, Tom Hegna, and that's your retirement red zone. Like you about to score a touchdown, right? What you do up to that point, and those 5 years before and the 5 years after you retire will determine how long you're able to stay retired, or if you're going to be able to go into retirement. So to answer that question, I like to look at the person, what they currently have, especially if they're an older person. And I'm more of a guaranteed guy, especially for older people. I don't like to see them lose money. I want to give them a paycheck and a play check. I want to make sure that I can give them a paycheck to cover all of their expenses, their housing, their food, their insurances. And then I want to make sure that I can give them a play check to do the things that they've always wanted to do, whether it be travel with their grandkids, play golf every day, or spend a month in Bermuda. That's what we decide we like to do with our customers, but we have to sit down and understand them first. I can't just say, go do this, look at that. I can give you a broad stroke view of what these options are, but then it's going to be up to us to sit down and fine tune it for each person.
So let me ask you a question. Many of my mom's friends talk about life insurance, term life and whole life, but a lot of them are kind of banking on their IRA to be their life insurance policy as well. What are some things everyone should do as far as life insurance? Should they get a term policy? Should they get a whole life policy? Or should they use their IRA as their life insurance policy?
Got you. Can we table that real quick? Dale Monroe asked the question: when you have more than one child, is it better to start investing in a one account for all and split the account later, or start with separate accounts for each child? The ideal thing to do, if you like the 529 route, like if that's the route that you want to take, it makes the most sense to start one and build that thing up, and then use it for the child. That if there's a difference in age, right, 4 years, 3 years, whatever it is, there's a difference in age, and then you can transfer it to child down the road. So each one of my children they differ in age by at least 4 years. So we could potentially do that. But in your situation, we'd have to look at how we would ladder it depending on the age of your children. Or if they're very close in proximity, then we would just tell you to start 2 different ones and manage it that way. So it really just depends again on your situation. Now, Barry, back to the question you asked me. This is solely my philosophy, and this is my philosophy based on my years in the industry. I would tell my parents, spend your IRA money and leave me life insurance.
Okay.
The reason I tell you that is because, Barry, if I inherit my mom's IRA, guess what I'm going to have to do?
Pay taxes.
Gosh, doggone right. The worst thing in the world to do is pay taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to give the IRS no more money than they're supposed to get. Guess why I want my mother to leave me life insurance? It's totally income tax free. So everyone watching this live, if you don't do anything else, tell your mom, your auntie, your grandma, whoever has you as a beneficiary, spend your IRA money, leave me life insurance. 1000% the way to go. Okay. The reason is, if you look, a lot of people say, well, millionaires don't have life insurance. Yes, they do. Millionaires, they're the first people to sign up. And this is why. I'll give you an example of a guy that has 4 cows. He's a butcher. Butcher makes a whole bunch of money selling meat. He said, we went and talked to him, and we said to him, you need to get some life insurance. He said, I don't need no life insurance, man. I got $10 million in the bank. I don't need no daggone life insurance. I said, sir, you really need some life insurance. He said, man, I don't need no life insurance. I said, well, let me give you this example. If you got 4 good cows, right, that make you good meat, you got 4 good ones, and when you die, the IRS is going to come in here and kill both of those cows and 2 of those cows and take them away. He said, well, why would you kill those cows? I said, well, we got to pay the IRS for your family to keep the other 2. He said, well, that don't make no sense. I said, well, if we bought a life insurance policy, your family gets to keep all 4 of those cows so y'all can keep making money. The life insurance policy is going to pay the taxes for you.
Got it.
So there's ways to do each one of these scenarios. And again, it boils down to individual situations, and we've got to make it make sense for each person. There's a lot of diligence that we have to take in order to do it, and we can't just do it with a broad stroke.
Now, let me ask you a question. Continuing with the children, should you add your child as an authorized user on your credit card? Why and why not?
So I think it depends on your behaviors as a parent. Again, I hate to be singing that same song. It's each scenario, but if you have good credit, have great behaviors when it comes to your credit, adding your child once they turn the age of majority to be able to do so, I think makes sense, because it'll help them build some credit. It'll teach them some responsibility. I personally have not done it, but you can do it. Absolutely, you can, and I know people that do.
What are some principles that you can begin to teach your children about investing in yourself, as far as retirement, IRAs, things of that nature? And when should you start preparing them for retirement as well?
I think it should be an ongoing conversation about money. So a lot of times in the African American households, money is taboo. We don't talk about it. We live paycheck to paycheck. We don't discuss these things because the knowledge wasn't there for us before, right? Before the internet, everything was in a book, and we would always say if you want to hide something from a person, you put it in a book, right? Because they have to go read and seek knowledge. Right now, today, if you don't want to be successful, you won't be successful. And the reason being is the information is at the click of a button. All you need is a computer and internet, a phone and internet. And about, I want to say 85 to 95% of society has that or has access to that. So we should have ongoing conversations with our children around what money, how money is, how to make it, how does it work for you, what credit is, how to make it work for you. And investing, the number one rule of investment: buy low, sell high.
Mm-hmm.
You can do those things. So I think all of those are great questions. And I think someone had a question out here about Derek Person, kind of jumping around, but it says, should I get term or whole life insurance? Derek, again, it's going to depend on your situation. I would ask a bunch of questions. Do you have children? Are you trying to cover for a mortgage? What are your income and expenses right now? Can you afford to take on a larger whole life policy right now so that you can pay it off in a certain number of years? So all of these questions will add up, and then we'll come to a solution. But I think everyone needs life insurance, no matter who you are. You should have life insurance in place on you to protect, even if you don't have children. You don't, GoFundMe is not a solution to our issues. The
Correct.
church is not a solution to our issues. We have so many other things the church can be doing with their funds besides burying people. We don't want to put good money into the ground. Okay. You want to prepare for that. It's our responsibility to leave the next generation better off than the way we left it. Okay.
Correct.
So I truly believe you don't measure the worth of a man by what he has, but by what he leaves for his children's children. So it's up to us to do that. And we have the means to do it now. This is a Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, correct? Did
Correct.
you guys know, I'm going to throw this out there to you, that there's a such thing called charitable giving.
Mm-hmm.
If you bought a life policy and you named your sorority or fraternity the irrevocable beneficiary, let's say you bought a policy, it was $100,000 you wanted to leave to your chapter, right? It's a nonprofit, correct?
Correct.
So that nonprofit is registered and it has that. We named them the chapter, the irrevocable beneficiary. The premiums that you pay can be deducted on your taxes.
Correct.
Because that's a donation. How many people knew that they can do that? A lot of people don't. And if you do know it, why not leave your chapter $100,000 policy? Buy a term policy. If you don't die within 20 years, fine. You still made those donations that you can write off. It's no different.
And you can do the same thing with your church.
Absolutely.
I go around and talk to churches about financial welfare within the church, and many of them did not know that they could do that and count their the amount that they pay far as their premiums far as a tax deductible gift. And a lot of times what happens is our churches are doing those things now. They are now people are now saying, oh, well, instead of me doing this, I'm going to leave $1,000 to my church. And the church is appreciative of it, especially when they fry you the chicken for your family to eat afterwards. So they appreciate that $1,000 gift. And so I think that's extremely beneficial as well. And then it's also good to know that you can do that for other nonprofits. Our nonprofit, the Beta Sigma Foundation, is readily available to take anything you all got. We want it. Okay. All right.
Absolutely. And if y'all call me, I'll help you get it set up. We work in unison to get it done.
Exactly.
This is something that I wanted to show you around an index fund, because I know a lot of people think about these things, and I wanted to show this illustration because it's powerful. It's something that a lot of people don't think about, but we have these nice cars that we pay $500, $600, $700 a month for. I want you to think about this. At age 25, if Monique paid off her car, she met with her financial coach at Granger Financial, and they decided to reallocate those resources to an index fund. if Monique were to put, if she were to put $100 a week or $400 a month away at 10% interest, in 35 years at age 60, she'd have $1.5 million. Now, I know y'all saying, well, $400 a month for 35 years? Listen, think about how long you paid a car payment. And then when you get tired of that car, you get another car and you pay another car payment.
That's right.
Be disciplined, and then you can live like nobody else when you're older. There's too many people that I see 60, 70 years old pushing a broom around our local high schools because they weren't educated on finance and weren't allowed to be educated on finance. We don't have an excuse anymore. We
That's
just
right.
don't.
So we're getting ready to wrap up, but give us 5 tips that every person of color or every person should know and should use today that you would just give anyone out there to far as investment funds, college funds, just 5 tips that will provide some generational wealth. Anything that you can think of at this point.
Got you. Number 1 is always pay yourself first. That means when you get your paycheck, you should have it set up to where you're paying yourself into your savings account or any of your investments before you pay any bills. Okay?
Okay.
That's the first thing. Number 1, pay yourself first. Number 2, if home ownership is something that you want or is something that's in your grasp, try and find the path to home ownership.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wealth has been created in this nation because of home ownership or land ownership. So we need that. Equity is built that way, okay? The third thing is buy your life insurance. Get you some life insurance in place. Okay? The fourth thing is make sure you take advantage of all of the benefits that your company offers if you work for a company. That means if you have a 401k, use it. Don't wait. Put more money in now while you're younger, because the first 3 or 4 checks is hard. And then just like we normally are, we figure it out. Okay? That's 4 things. The 5th thing I would say is, let me think about this one. This is hard. This is tough to just come up with this off the top of my head. But the 5th thing I would say is, if you have a spouse or partner, make sure that you guys share your goals financially together. Okay? Because a lot of marriages don't happen or end up in divorce because of finance. So most people go into marriage in debt. Think about that. They spend more money and time planning their wedding that costs $20,000, $30,000, and they go into marriage in debt versus planning their financial future. Because money has been so taboo, we don't talk about it.
Correct.
That's something that I would definitely make sure that we all talk about, and we share those goals with each other.
Can I add one more?
Yeah.
I would say get you a will.
Yes.
Those are extremely important, and have a great financial planner, because what would happen is those 2 things kind of work in sync with each other, especially if you want to develop a trust, or if you have some funds that are out there. That there's so many legal vehicles that we can use to put that money away, to kind of safeguard it, so that those individuals who you love will not suffer behind you, and you can invest in them. And it doesn't have to be millions of dollars, but it could be something that can be substantial in years to come. And so I tell everybody, I don't care how old you are, how young you are, if you have people that you love, get a will, but also and speak with your attorney about what you can do with certain things, but also have a financial planner that can talk to you about what you want to do now and years to come.
So, and I think that's a key word that you just said there. So, financial planner or financial coach, okay? Because sometimes, and Barry, you'll be able to attest to this, is that a financial planner has to have the goal to want to help you if you don't have a lot of money to get started,
Mm-hmm.
because they're paid off of assets under management. And
Correct.
this is why at Granger Financial, we don't do the financial planning from a standpoint of doing your investments. We'll help you develop the plans. We'll definitely help you develop the plans, and then we'll help you get with someone to actually sell you those products so that we can be a cost-effective method in order to help you do it. I'm fully licensed to do it all, but I've chosen not to sell the products so that I can make these plans cost-effective for any customer that we come in contact with. Okay.
Got it.
And that's only the investment vehicles, meaning like the 529 plans, meaning the mutual funds or stocks. At Granger Financial, we don't sell any of those products, but we do life insurance, we do annuities, we do auto, home, and life, and we will plan with you because we're able to make sure that you get those vehicles. So having a financial coach, I think, is paramount. And then finding a financial planner that'll help you build your assets over time versus one that wants you to come in with 100,000 or 150,000.
So what's the difference between a financial planner and a financial coach? Because what's not the difference, but what certifications should these entities have? Because you see somebody that, oh, I'm a life coach, and they turn your life up, and so like your life toe up, and then you turn my life up, and so like my issue is I want to make sure that I'm putting my funds and my investments into someone that's knowledgeable about this. And so what certification should we look for that these people should have when I trust you with these funds?
So that's a great question. And I think one of the things you can always do is if you talk to someone and they say they're a licensed professional, you can always look them up on Broker Check. So Google Broker Check, and then you type their first and last name in and what state they're in, and it'll pull up whether they have any licenses, whether they have any illegal activity that has happened against their license or any complaints, anything like that. You can definitely look at that. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you want life insurance, they definitely have to be licensed to sell life insurance. If you want to do investments, they need to have either a series 6, 7, or 65 in order to be able to position those products or sell them to you, right?
Yeah.
So those are some things that you would have to have, or if they're a certified financial planner, there's a CFP designation that you have to have out there, or there's a chartered financial consultant designation that you have to have out there. And I'm working towards, I'm only a couple classes short of getting our CHFC designation over at Granger Financial. But those are some of the things that you should look for, but definitely utilize Broker Check.
Got it. So you've given us a lot of information. Many of our viewers want to meet you, come in to figure out like, how can you fix my money? Or how can you save me from losing any more money? Absolutely. How can they contact you? And do you do Zoom appointments? Do you do home appointments? All that kind of good stuff, and provide your contact information.
So with COVID, I'm not coming to nobody's house unless you got that vaccine. But no, we do Zoom appointments. We have in-office appointments. We try and stay very COVID friendly, COVID safe. If you email us, we do a great job, my wife and I, of getting back to people, making sure that we can find a time that works best for them. One of the most overlooked things that we found in people's financial plan is their insurance. You can have $1 million in the bank, but if you have the wrong insurance limit, you're leaving that money, to be liable, to be party to a lawsuit. And we want to help people protect that. So yes, we do all of the above. If you're in this, so we're in about 16 states, anyone up and down the East Coast, from New Jersey all the way down to South Carolina for property and casualty, New Jersey all the way down to Florida for life insurance and annuities. And we go as far west as we're in California. So there's not much that we can't do. It's just if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us. We want to be a resource, and we'll be very honest. If we can't help you or we can't beat what you currently have, we're not in the business of just writing business just to write it. We're going to do what's in your best interest, because that builds trust and that builds confidence in our brand. That name, that brand that you see there, we plan on it being there, but when we're no longer here, and our daughters will have the choice whether they keep this business going or sell it to someone else to keep going. So that's our goal. So it means a lot to us.
Okay, so provide us your contact information.
So I have it up on the screen, and it's our phone number to the office is 866-973-1128. My personal email address is jeff@grangerfinancial.com. Our website is grangerfinancial.com, or you can email us at info@grangerfinancial.com for any random questions that you might have. But if you have my direct email, I'm not above getting back to you within 24 hours. And our office is located in Leesburg, Virginia, with our second one to come down in Hampton Roads here pretty soon. Please be on the lookout for it.
Got it. Mr. Granger, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. You can just look at the comments and see how interactive you were and how people are enjoying this, and just provided vital information to our community. I hope and pray that we'll not only be able to see you again, but that God continue to bless your business, and then you continue to touch the lives of so many others.
Thank you so much.
And so, y'all, it's 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, I would be up here all night long with you, but I got to get on my OnlyFans. Y'all, I can't just be on here for Facebook. I got to make my money. But all seriousness, don't forget, on Saturday we're having the Law Enforcement Symposium. It's going to be this Saturday from 12 to 2. I'll be hosting. With a few people from our chapter, a few people from the Eastern region. I would love for you all to join in. It's not limited to anyone. If you decide you want to be a part of it, you can. One of our very own Suffolk Interim Police Chief, Brother Al Chandler, will be a part of it. Brother Steve should be putting the flyer in the chat right now. We want you all to be a part. This is going to be a 3-part series. So the first part is this Saturday at 12 p.m. We're going to be talking about what to do when you interact with law enforcement. And then on May 15th, we'll be having attorneys, 2 judges, and we'll be talking about the Constitution. And then on May 15th, we'll talk about how to become a law enforcement officer and career in law enforcement. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all on this Zoom on Saturday. Our next Sigma Virtual Hour will be on gun control, how to ascertain a gun, what crimes are occurring as far as in the state of Virginia as far as guns. We will have a Commonwealth attorney. We'll have a few people to talk about gun rights, what to do to get your guns, things of that nature. So I look forward to seeing you all here back at the Sigma Virtual Hour, but I also look forward to seeing you on Saturday at our Law Enforcement Symposium. Listen, I'm Barry Dowdy. This is the Sigma Virtual Hour with the Beta Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Good night.